Okay, cool. It's recording. We're live. Nice. So, thanks everyone for attending. I know it's tricky time. I slightly changed the title of the Snackchat to be a product-oriented Git workflow. And the idea of this Snackchat is that instead of going very deep into the explanation of the various Git command, I'm trying to explain a possible workflow that will make it easier and will make it sense within a product-oriented development flow and mindset. And yeah, so usually when we think about Git repository, there are two main stories that we tell. One is that Git history is the history of what happened within the code base, and another one is that the Git history is the history of what happened within the product. And those two mindsets usually affect the way you use the tool. For example, if you merge the master in, if you base, or how often you commit, and how you write the commits message, and so on. And I do believe that actually these two mindsets are not really global mindset, but they are more specific in the kind of phase of the code you are in. So the code base history is really something that you should be concerned while you are writing a new feature. It's something that should be living into your development branches, and it should be about your workflow. That means it should not get in the way of the things you want to do, and will allow you to experiment, break things, and it can be brittle, because that is something we just need to experiment with, and that need to allow us to build the things we want to build in the first place. The product history, on the other side of things, is something more robust. That is what we want in the master branch. And it should really tell the story of the features of the things you have built in the product, and none of the way you have built those. The code is there for that. And it should be robust. It must be robust. That means that possibly each and every single commit could be deployable and should be tested. Another thing is that it should be readable by really anyone, both if they are in the team you are working on, and if they are jumping in for helping, or just want to review the code if it's public and shared. Git history could be helpful to get a sense of what is going on in the code. And therefore, it should be as simple as possible. So as we have two different mindsets, we have also two different ways to approach the Git repository itself. And when we are writing the code base history, one thing we want to do is commit early and often, so that we can have always a way to roll back if something is not working as expected. We can delete stuff. We have way to annotate what we are going to do as well. And another tool that I find it very useful, other than simple commit, is the stash. The stash does allow you to get some of the content you have and push it in a kind of scrapbook somewhere that is not really living within the branch or the Git history at all. And I find this very useful for a lot of things, because you can also query the stash, and you can add comments to the stash. And I find it very, very useful, for example, where I'm debugging something, instead of adding code there with my notes in commits. I usually keep those in the stash so I can refer later if I have a similar bug. I use this as really my note-taking place within Git. And another very small tool that I find it's very useful when I'm working on within the code base and building new stuff is the amend. A lot of time I happen to forget to add a specific file, for example, or a small change because I haven't saved and I already pushed that commit. And amend, it's very easy to do that. And if you prepend the no edit flag, it also won't prompt you to insert a message. So it's very quick way to add things back to a commit that is already existing. And another thing I do most of the time, I don't think we do that often, is to use multiple branches when I'm developing. This feels a little bit odd because theoretically a PR is related to just one branch. But again, this is just how I like to play when I'm building the code, and it's not really preparing that code to be shipped. And the powerful thing about having multiple branches that allow me to experiment. For example, on the red branch, I was working on the specific feature. Then I created another branch, the blue one, because I was playing with another feature. I wasn't sure how I was about to develop that. And then I went all the way down to this last blue commit, and I figured out, okay, I'm not really happy about when this is going, where this is going, but I still like these two commits. So I created another branch starting from there that allow me to experiment in different way I want to do that, and then I end up with a good solution in here. Maybe I could have scrubbed it back at the end and went back to the blue one, for example. It allowed me a little bit more flexibility in the development flow, and it won't get in the way of me playing with the code without having to switch back and forth between various commits. Now, editing product history. That means how we go from this mass multiple branches, a lot of commit, to something that is a little bit tighter and it's ready to be merged, or at least proposed as a PR and then eventually merged, so in something that is more linear. Especially if we had, for example, somebody else at work on the master branch, we have a couple of new commits in. Cool. So one of the things I like to do first is start squashing the various commit into a self-contained feature. This is also why I like using multiple branch, because I already can separate the various features into layers very easily doing that. So let's say we want the yellow branch and we want everything in between those, that include the first two branch. If we think about that now, the yellow branch is really a branch that contains all the history till that point, so we should not care about the other blue, and we can squash it very easily using GIT rebase, just picking the first commit and squashing everything else into one simple commit. So we end up with something like this. Now we want to have this on our main PR, our main branch, that is the one we're going to base the PR into. So we check out the red branch and we merge in the yellow branch. This is going to be a straightforward merge because it's just following the code. And now what we want to do is to do the same thing with the red branch, but we want to make sure we are not also squashing the yellow commit, because that is a dedicated feature. Couple of things that are important to take into consideration when we're doing this is that we want to make sure that each and every commit we have at the end of this flow is passing the test. So once you're doing the squash, also make sure to run all the tests for that specific commit. If something is failing, maybe it's worth considering editing that specific commit till you have everything green and ready to go. Because again, we want the history we are editing now to be as robust as possible. And another thing is try to write a very good description for it. That is helpful in to its readability of the code, both for you and everybody else on the team, or again, everybody that is interested to take a look at that Git repository. And there are a lot of good rules. I think 3 are the most important one to follow is to limit the subject line to just 50 characters. So no matter where you're reading that, it will always be visible and entirely visible. And then use a white blank line to separate between the subject of the commit and the body of the commit. And you can use the body of the commit to do a lot of things. One of the things it should be useful is to explain what and why happened in that commit, why you are building the feature. Not the how. The how should really be into the code itself. The code should be readable by itself. Cool. So now we are almost ready to merge the scene. But again, the master has progressed in the meanwhile, so we need to sync it back. One of the most straightforward approaches, what we do use most of the time, is to use merge to add in, to bring back the changes that we have to the latest master to our own branch. The only issue with this is that while it's really straightforward to do, it's also adding an extra commit that is not really belonging to this PR, because it's bringing in changes that don't belong to this PR. So it also makes it a little bit harder to review it later. And it could be brittle, because in this way, we're not sure that these two are really working well with the changes we have in here. Oh, sorry, one. Fast. Okay. Cool, I'm back. The other option we have is to use rebase. And with rebase, what we are doing at the end of the day is just pushing this to the latest possible state by kind of pretending we start working on this after those changes have been introduced. And the thing I really like about this approach is that, first of all, it's not adding an extra commit. And the most important thing is that conflict resolution is centered on every individual commit and not all together on the final commit. This has the drawback of being a bit more time consuming and sometimes more painful if you have a lot of changes. And that is also the reason why it's very important to squash commit as much as possible, because if you have 20 commits, you're going to handle conflict resolution for each and every of those 20. But the good thing is that it's definitely more robust, because you are addressing conflict and therefore changes on each and every feature. You know that once you have done with that commit, everything in there is rock solid that could be shipped independently. The important thing while rebasing is always checking you are on the current branch. That happened to me multiple times, and especially if you are in the middle of working, you need to revert back to changes. Hopefully you have pushed and tracked already in the server. But easiest thing is just to check you are on the current branch before start rebasing. Cool. Last thing is that we create our PR. We're ready to push it out. Added some great comment on GitHub and everything. And we got some really good change requests in our PR that we want to address. Again, easiest thing to do is to add another commit at the very end of this and add the content in. But I believe the best thing to do is, again, using rebase and using the edit and extend the squash method there to roll back to that to the feature commit we need to change to update to the change request and do all our work there. So again, everything is simple, nice, and rock solid. Yeah, that's more or less about it in terms of the workflow. And what I want to touch briefly is why, because I know it's a little bit more painful. We have a lot of extra step, especially in cleaning up. And the main reason is that I believe treating our PR and cleaning up the history before merging it in this way, it will make it easier not only to understand what happened in the product, but it will make it easier for the people that are going to review our code to understand what we're building there and why, without trying to unwrap all our logic and how we end up to that solution. It also make it way easier to debug trouble we have with tools, for example, with, like Git bisect, because we know at that point each and every commit is rock solid and stable. So if we identify that the trouble is happening in one specific commit, we can just revert that one, and we know the other features are going to be as independent as possible, at least theoretically. And the other thing is that once we identify the faulty commit with Git bisect, we also will have a meaningful description of what happened in that commit that could prompt us to find a solution earlier, instead of going back to the PR, try to monkey patch what that commit hash PR was referred to. And yeah, overall, I think it's more robust, and I think that I like it, and it's very healthy for me, is that it forced me to think in terms of atomic feature and try to compartmentalize the changes I want to make in the simple changes as possible. That's all for me, and yeah, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
I guess no one has a question.
Yeah, no question. Cool.
Federico, have you fully moved to like using like rebase over merge, and like have you adjusted that on your like GitHub workflows as well, like to use the kind of like the button, the merge commit or the rebase option? Have you have you shifted?
Yeah, I think it's probably more than 1 year that I'm used rebase in most of the cases when I bring changes back to master before preparing up. Yeah, I recently started playing a little bit more with squashing and cleaning up everything before merging it in. But yeah, for rebase against merge, I think I've been using it. Yeah, definitely for more than 1 year.
Nice.
Yeah, so far it's good. I had some cases where I haven't checked I was on the right branch. That's something why I mentioned it's important to double check. And so you have to roll back. It's easy to do it if you have already, if you're already tracking everything to the server. You just can reset everything. You lose a bit of time. It's not the end of the world, but sometimes it's a bummer. That happened.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's cool. I think I've started to use rebase a bit more, but I know like kind of when I operate in buffer web, sometimes I still use like merge commits because that's kind of like how we've kind of done things for a while to kind of for simplicity. But I do like the rebase. It does feel like cleaner, and like you know exactly what the changes that you're adding there and everything, and how the history works out. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I think it'd be awesome to encourage it a little bit more. I think in the past we more said like merge, but like rebase, if you once you get used to it, it's really nice and clean, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially if you have some like long running branch or something. Sometimes you have like 2 or 3 master merging. It's very hard to figure out what happened at that point, and for everybody. Yeah.
I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened. Yeah. I mean, I did that a lot of time too. It's something that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. It's like you have 20 commits and like 6 of them are merge commits, and then you're merging it in. So it's like, it ends up like polluting the history almost with not like valuable, diffs and everything.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I think we should definitely encourage people to explore it and experiment with it like over time. And I think with our newer, like certain, at least on web, there's a lot of newer newer repos, which have a little bit maybe less potential conflicts or messy history, that might be a little bit easier to work around, or many number of collaborators. So we have less and less people. It's easier to do.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, definitely. One of the reasons I start thinking more and playing more with the history is that working with Analyze, the team is smaller, the code history is fresher. So it do also feel a bit better to tidy it up and make sure I'm not polluting it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a very good point then.
That's cool. Thank you, Federico.
Thank you all. It's fun. Going to stop the